Windermere, Oregon wasn't the kind of town that made headlines. It sat quietly between thick pine-covered ridges and winding dirt roads, tucked away like a secret only the locals knew. Time didn't rush in Windermere, it lingered. Most evenings ended with the scent of wood smoke curling from chimneys and the soft slam of porch screen doors closing against the chill. The town breathed slowly, steady and safe. Just beyond the last stretch of houses, the ones with sagging porches and mailboxes, painted by hand lived the Whitmore family. Grace Whitmore and her twin daughters, Lily and Clara. The girls were 10, though you might guess younger from their quiet presence. They shared the same auburn hair and deep brown eyes, but beyond that, they couldn't have been more different. Lily stood a little taller and walked with purpose, eyes sharp, mind always ticking, chasing after questions. Clara moved gently, her steps light, like a thought drifting through the air. Always wondering, always feeling. Though different, their connection was deep and spoken, instinctive, like two branches stretching from the same trunk. They didn't always see eye to eye, but their paths always stayed close. Lily usually led, Clara never far behind, and always with Bruno beside them. Bruno wasn't just their dog, he was family. 5 years old, part German Shepherd and part something no one had ever quite pinned down. He had a slight limp in one back leg, a remnant of an early injury that had kept him from passing Sir Rescue training. But his heart, pure guardian, watchful, loyal, and always aware. He slept by their bunk bed every night and paced near the front door whenever a storm was coming. Every weekend, Lily, Clara, and Bruno would take the trail behind their house that wound deep into Pine Hollow Forest. It was a place older than Windermere itself, filled with moss-draped logs and paths long forgotten. It belonged to them by late October. Most people avoided the woods, but not the Whitmore twins. That Saturday, the air was colder than usual, sharp with the scent of cedar and fallen leaves. And for reasons none of them could name, they wandered deeper into the forest than ever before. The trail they followed that afternoon didn't have a name, just a narrow path hidden under bramble and frost-bitten ferns. It wasn't part of their usual loop. Bruno had veered off suddenly, nose close to the ground, ears twitching like radar. "Something's got him spooked," Lily muttered, instinctively reaching for Clara's sleeve. Bruno let out a single, sharp bark. It wasn't playful, it wasn't even loud, but it was urgent. They didn't question him. Bruno never barked unless it mattered. They followed without hesitation. About 30 steps in, just beyond a fallen pine, they saw him, a man, a police officer. It was Officer Ethan Reyes, slumped at the base of a tree, barely visible beneath a covering of dry leaves and snapped branches. His uniform dark navy with a worn Windermere Police Department patch was soaked in blood. Clara gasped, the kind of sound that doesn't come from your throat but from somewhere deep and shaking. She stumbled backward, her boots crunching through a bed of leaves she no longer felt. One hand flew to her mouth, the other gripping a nearby branch to steady herself. Her eyes stayed locked on the sight of Ethan's blood-covered chest, wide and glistening. She didn't understand what she was seeing, not fully, but she already knew it was something no child should ever have to. Lily didn't move, couldn't move. Her feet felt rooted to the forest floor. Everything around her suddenly froze. Her breath stuck in her throat, broken, not quite escaping. She stared at the man, the pale hue of his face. The way red pooled beneath him like spilled ink, and a chill crawled up her spine. Inside her, something screamed, "Run," but she didn't. Instead, she stepped forward. Bruno circled the officer slowly, nose low to the ground. He let out a soft, almost mournful whine, then lay down beside Ethan's boots, motionless but alert. "He's alive," Lily whispered. She dropped to her knees beside him, hands trembling as her eyes searched for the source of the bleeding. "We have to stop it," she said, Clara shaking. Dug through her coat pocket and pulled out the old flip phone their mum made them carry whenever they walked the trail. The screen flickered but came to life. Her fingers fumbled over the buttons. 911, she stammered. "We found a police officer. He's hurt bad. I think we're near the West Creek Bend in Pine Hollow." Lily yanked off her scarf, folded it, and pressed it tightly against the wound. "Help's coming," she said, her voice firm even though her hands were shaking. Ethan's eyes remained closed, but she held her ground. "You don't get to die today." Bruno didn't move. He kept his gaze steady on Lily, as if silently urging her to stay strong, to keep going. 20 minutes, that's what the dispatcher said. But 20 minutes in the forest, with blood on the ground and no adult in sight, felt like an eternity. Robert Reyes disappeared. She stared at it for a long time. Some ghosts don't stay buried, and in Windermere, some people would rather keep it that way. The storm came faster than anyone expected. By late afternoon, clouds had rolled over Windermere like a curtain being drawn tight. The sky darkened to ash, and Thea turned electric, charged with thickened of stillness that made animals, patient children instinctively fall quiet. Ray stood at the kitchen window, wiping her hands on a dish towel dusted with flour. She glanced at the clock, then at the empty spot where Lily and Clara's boots usually sat. "They said they'd only be gone an hour," she murmured to herself, but their backpacks were missing. So was Bruno, out in Pine Hollow Forest. Lily and Clara were huddled beneath the gnarled roots of an old fallen tree. The storm had broken just minutes after they reached the edge of Miller's Hollow, the place where Officer Ethan Reyes had last been seen before he was found wounded. He had mentioned it briefly at the hospital. A narrow trail, something about a logging route no longer on the maps. And Morathon, once Bruno had barked sharply near thought, same spot. Each time tense, uneasy. It was Lily who noticed the pattern, Bruno's behavior, Ethan's route, their strange silence in that part of the woods. That morning, she'd written in her notebook, same area, same reaction, something's there. So, they had returned, hoping to trace Ethan's last steps, hoping in their quiet, determined way to find something the adults might have missed. But what they found instead were voices, male voices, strange, low, tense. Through a break in the underbrush, they saw two figures moving through the trees, headlamps bobbing, heavy boots scrunching through soaked leaves. One of them muttered, "Those kids saw something. We can't risk it." Lily's breath caught. Clara gripped her arm, eyes wide. Bruno growled, a deep, low warning. Then, without waiting, the girls back into the hollow, positioning his body between them and the sound. They didn't run, they couldn't. The rain was coming sideways, wind howling like something alive. Branches cracked overhead. Thunder rolled so close it shook the ground. Then a snap, a twig, too close. Bruno stood, his hackles raised, and then Lakia, switch, flipping. He bolted into their clearing. There was a shout. A flashlight beam swept across the trees just in time to catch Bruno mid-leap. He collided with one of the men, knocking him backward into the mud. The other swung wildly with a metal pipe, striking Bruno's side. He yelped, but didn't back down. He darted through the brush, snapping and circling, forcing them to follow him deeper into the trees, away from the girls. Minutes earlier, Grace had called the station. Lily, Clara, and Bruno were missing. Emma and Ethan shared the same thought before either of them said it aloud. They had a feeling, a bad one, that the girls had gone back to Miller's Hollow. Minutes later, headlights flickered through the woods. Detective Emma Caldwell and Ethan Reyes, soaked to the bone and out of breath, jumped from the police department's big truck. Billy, Clara, Ethan's shouted, voice hoarse. From the hollow came a small voice. Here, Emma dropped to her knees, pulling Clara into her arms. Ethan reached for Lily, hands trembling. You're safe now, we've got to, he whispered. And then a whimper. Bruno staggered from the trees, limping, his sides soaked with blood. His eyes found the girls, and his tail thumpadons before he collapsed. Brun, they carried in unison, running to him. Ethan scooped the dog into his arms. Bad, he said, voice cracking. Emma was already on the radio, calling the emergency vet. As they raced back through the storm, rain pounding the windshield, there was silence in the pickle. Not fear, not panic, just awe, and a kind of love too big for words. The animal hospital smelled faintly of septic and warm fur, the kind awfulness, where hope came quietly, one heartbeat at a time. Bruno lay on a padded table, his breathing shallow but steady. A petite veterinarian with calm hands and tired eyes finished stitching the gash along his ribs. She looked up at Grace, then at the girls. He lost a lot of blood, she said gently, but if he makes it through the night, I think he'll pull through. Lily and Clara didn't leave his side. They sat curled together on the floor, wrapped in oversized blankets that swallowed their small frames. Their cheeks still flushed from the cold answer, with dried tears. Lily kept one hand gently on Bruno's chest, as if afraid his breathing might stop if she let go. Her other hand clutched the edge of the blanket, knuckles white like shewers, holding herself together by. Clara rested her head against Bruno's shoulder, her fingers tracing small circles in his fur, slow, careful, as though she were whispering apologize without words. She hadn't said much since the forest, but every so often her lips moved in silence. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. They had seen something that day they couldn't see, faced something most children ever should. But through it all, Bruno had stood between them and the worst of it, and now all they could do was stay beside him like he had stayed beside them. In the days that followed, Emma, Ethan, and a small unit of officers returned to Miller's Hollow with Osage team. Thanks to Lily's notes and Bruno's instincts, they located a hidden trail used for off-grid transport. By the end of the week, several arrests had been made. The group behind the illegal logging and weapons trade was dismantled quietly but thoroughly. And it had all started with two girls, Annette Book, and a dog who never gave up. Back home, the apartment felt warmer than it had in months. Not from the radiator, but from something else. The next morning, Grace found a small envelope at their doorstep. No name, just a note for the oven. Windmere still remembers your baking. Inside was a grocery store gift card and a second envelope with a folded repair invoice. She didn't cry, but something loosened in her chest. By the end of the week, the oven worked again. The smell of cinnamon and maple filled the apartment as Grace baked her first batch of muffins in over a year. Lily and Clara took turns stirring the batter. Bruno, still sore but healing, curled up at the kitchen door, tail thumping every time someone walked past. Ethan came by that evening, not in uniform, just in jeans and a flannel. He carried a box of apples and a smile that didn't look quite so tired. "I hear you're hiring unofficial taste testers," Hay joked. Grace handed him a muffin, still warm from the oven. "No resume required," she said, smiling. An in-thought, small quiet moment with the air, laughter in the kitchen, and Bruno sleeping nearby. It felt like home had finally come back to